Welcome to Retail Intelligence in Action, a limited video podcast series from Ometria and OFFBounds, where we cut through the hype and talk honestly about how AI is reshaping enterprise retail marketing. I'm your host, Ron Thurston, and in every episode, I'm joined by one of the founders of Ometria, Djalal Lougouev or Ivan Mazur, as we explore what's real, what's next, and what it means for leaders building the future of this industry. This episode is all about the messy middle, that moment where there's no roadmap, but bold decisions still need to be made. Our guest today is Nicole Tapscott, Chief Commercial Officer at Knix, and a strategic force who brings together creativity, operations, and customer obsession in everything she does. Nicole has worked across luxury, CPG, retail, and performance marketing, from agency leadership to client-side transformation. At Knix, she's leading the charge to reimagine how teams collaborate, how creative is produced, and how AI can enable, not replace, the creative process. We discuss testing new workflows, experimenting with generative tools, navigating internal buy-in, and what it takes to build AI capabilities from scratch. It's a candid look at what transformation really looks like inside a high-growth brand. So let's dive in. Nicole and Djalal, welcome. Really glad to have you both here with us to talk about everything retail intelligence, for sure. So
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for having us. I'm so excited to be here.
Glad you're both
Thanks,
here.
Ron. Great to be here.
Of course. So, Nicole, before we get too far into it, I've introduced you and talked a little bit about your background, but tell us more about Knix for those that don't know a lot about the brand.
Absolutely. So Knix is a intimates and apparel business. We started about 12 years ago, effectively completely revolutionizing the intimates space. So right now we stand as kind of the number one leak-proof underwear company in North America.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And what started as a D2C movement that was driven on community, barrier breaking, really kind of taking down the taboos around periods, leaks, all of those kinds of experiences that almost every single woman has. We effectively have democratized the topic and made it accessible and available to every woman.
Wow.
And we're now kind of internationally recognized as one of the fastest growing e-commerce based businesses. And it's been really exciting to see how the community has kind of grown and evolved with us as we've expanded into new categories outside of just bras and underwear.
So many marketing questions attached to that.
Yeah.
But how you become that. But
yes.
let's start in maybe the last couple of years as AI, technology, things have evolved. Where did you see bottlenecks in the company that you said, there's got to be a better way to do this as you're growing to be the number one intimate apparel brand in the space? So
what's really interesting is the nature at which kind of the D2C businesses have evolved. D2C, it's funny. I've been asked this often before. It's like, oh, what's next for D2C? Is D2C dead? And it's funny. It's like D2C was never a new concept, right? Like if you go back 70 years ago, D2C was the milkman delivering kind of milk to your door. And what made that kind of direct-to-consumer model completely unscalable was effectively the cost of doing business. You could, as a retailer, you couldn't go and knock on every person's door and try and sell your product individually. And so technology helped to effectively completely dismantle that existing system that was in place and make it possible for literally hundreds of thousands of new businesses to be created that could sell directly to you. And in that time, I think what we saw was this huge prevalence of kind of from 2000 to 2010 of businesses that modeled themselves really out of taking out the middleman, right? And so I can sell you a pair of glasses, I can sell you a mattress, I can sell you a sofa, and you don't have to go to the big box retailers, and I'll charge you less because now I don't have to pay a margin to the retailers. I can pass that savings along to you. And that model worked for 15 years, and there were real savings that existed to the customer. You could spend a lot less on the exact same quality kind of item. But what made that feasible was the cost of acquisition was low enough that you were making a affordable trade as a business. So instead of giving the margin to a big box retailer, you were paying cents on the dollar to acquire the customer, really via, well, like Meta, effectively.
Yeah.
But as the cost of doing business have like increased substantially on these digital platforms, a lot of businesses have now looked at the way that they've structured themselves and said, it's actually better for me to go to where the customer wants, where the customer is. So I think now D2C has evolved to like effectively direct to where your customer lives and wants to shop.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be e-commerce, that might be retail, or that might be wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
But what it's meant for media is now to compete in the media landscape, you have to have a huge volume of creative. And your creative you have to learn super fast if something works or not, because it's too expensive as a business to run effectively at scale on these platforms without really like supportive infrastructure to help make creative and get it out there.
Right.
So I think like at Knix and in other businesses that I've seen, huge opportunities have existed, I think, in not necessarily like using AI for capturing content or replacing models or anything, but just in terms of iterations and speed to market. And letting creatives do what they do really well, which is conceptualizing, coming up with great creative, casting, and letting kind of the machine make versions, test different structures, test different ad formats, and get a lot more efficient. So to me, I think that was the first place that we saw that, where there was this innate need to say, how are we ever going to kind of feed the beast, without enough versioning of different creative, and how are we ever going to be able to actually make all of those versions if it was actually like done kind of pen to paper every single time.
Right. Like early D2C.
Yeah.
And maybe in those years, it really was one size fits all.
Yes.
Everyone got the same ad. Everyone got the same email.
Yep.
So the content creation necessity didn't become a bottleneck.
Totally.
As it is today. And you said you're just opening a new flagship in Soho.
Yes, that's right. We just opened,
So, D2C for you has become all channels.
That's right.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, we're present across all channels. I mean, by the end of this year, we'll have 19 retail locations. We're in a number of really wonderful retail partners across Canada. And so we've really seen growth of the business come from these, what one may call more traditional channels. But they're really wonderful places for us to kind of like interact and engage with our consumer group.
And did you have one experiment that you tried with AI that you could share a detail here? Like, so understanding the bottleneck, what was something you tried? What was the result?
Yeah, I think a great example for us is obviously Knix is extremely community focused, and we engage a lot with our community. But our community also loves to engage with us, give us their feedback, ask us questions. And in order to support kind of that very high increasing scale, one of the things that we did do is we looked at on our site implementing support via like an AI agent.
Okay.
And so it allows us effectively to like understand where the customer probably needs support in their shopping journey and proactively like reach out to them on the site in an unintrusive way. They can always be like, go away, fine, we won't bother you again. But if they're interested and we see them like kind of hovering on the page or clicking through different sizing as an example, we can now much more proactively reach out and engage with that consumer. And now we're able to filter a lot of kind of our tickets via this agent, because the agent obviously learns from the way that we teach it, the way that we've structured our data, the language that we use. It's very informed. And then if the topic becomes sensitive or if the topic becomes complex, then we do pop it over to a person who can help if it's a more sensitive topic, as an example, because we're dealing with leak-proof underwear can be for a variety of reasons. It can be for postpartum. It can be for, if you're seeking cancer care. There's lots of different reasons, and we want to make sure that we keep that kind of high touch experience for our consumer on the site.
And confidentiality.
Yeah.
There may be questions
that
bot related because of that.
Yeah, that you want to, absolutely, for sure.
So interesting.
And that's been a really kind of successful experiment for us. And it's a great way for us to kind of not replace our CX team in any way, but actually add a service to the consumer group in a way that feels high touch and very much in line with Knix values, our Knix 6 values. and be able to also like garner information from our consumers around product feedback or any problems we're having on our site or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So interesting. And Djalal, brands that you're working with through Ometria, do you see similar, like identifying a bottleneck and then looking for a solution to solve it? And maybe starting on the smaller side, let's test this and learn from it.
Nicole basically mentioned it or described the problem and the solution in a perfect way. And I think that's where you need to start. You need to really identify a problem that is small enough, but is also painful enough. Because if you start, like most things, when you start talking about AI or try to implement AI, it's quite broad. And then if you start broad and don't have a very specific focus, it's very difficult to deploy, very difficult to get buy-in, very difficult technologically, because once again, we keep on talking about data. So the broader you are, the harder it is to implement. So I think starting small and focusing on one particular pain point and implementing an AI, make sure that you have a clear objective outcome and ensuring that you can test it effectively and then kind of measure the results and compare it to what the baseline might have been.
Right.
And I think the other component is very interesting is the AI working closely with humans, right? Because I think that's what we're seeing more and more, where the AI agent is taking in questions, filtering them, digesting them, and then at the right time bringing in a human to then take it one step further.
Yeah.
And I see that kind of being the middle ground between what we have now and the next stage or the next phase of AI.
Yeah. And do you see brands that need to get certain things accomplished first, like put building blocks in place, talk about data, building teams? Like where do you start with that?
Ultimately, before you even begin any conversation around AI, I think it's vital that you get the data in place. And there's so many different like examples and analogies and you name it, that kind of if you have a car but no fuel, you're not going to get anywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's ultimately starting with the right data foundation. And that's why, going back to my point of starting small, and I think your example is fantastic because most brands have a messy data set. I don't think there's a single brand out there that has their data in order. In some places, yes, but in most places, it's very kind of in silos. It's you have to clean it, you have to enrich it, etc. So if you have a very focused approach to testing or solving a particular pain point, you can make sure that the data around that problem is actually kind of sorted and cleaned up and enriched where necessary. So then you can kind of run the tests accurately. So before you do anything, data. After that, it's identifying the problem, identifying the measurement, identifying what you're trying to achieve, and then identifying a time frame. And of course, beyond the technology, beyond the data, you also need to get buy-in and set the guardrails, because AI can get out of control very quickly. So I think you have to set guardrails, and I think it's more important than ever before, specifically for brands that want to differentiate. They need to input their brand values, set those guardrails, make sure that the AI doesn't go out of control. So there's always a human kind of overlay or guidance that is absolutely necessary. So data first, make sure that you put in the guardrails and then set up the right tests and experiments and start small bit by bit.
Great advice. And Nicole, when you thought about the team as what Jalal's explaining, you think about those processes and steps. How did your team evolve out of that? Did you make changes? Did you shift responsibilities? Did you think about how to add additional training and development?
So I think like the way I think about this is kind of in a few different buckets. So I think Djalal spoke really well about the data piece. I mean, I always feel like I heard this analogy from probably somebody who knows way more about AI than me, which is that like, effectively deploying AI in your business is kind of like having a $1 billion rocket ship with no steering wheel. If you don't have the infrastructure, like if you don't have the actual like underpinning of the inputs right. So it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. And so in the example that I gave you, it was just extraordinarily important that what we actually structured around how we address topics, at what point is it escalated to a person, was super clear, that the brand tone was super clear. And so that the actual structure of what the agent was pulling from was like understood. And that degree of review, like of what we said and the tone, it started within consumer support, which really loved this project as an initiative because it increased the number of touch points we could have with the customer, which is always what we're trying to do. But it was something that was even reviewed by our founder and president, because we wanted to make sure that the tone felt real. And so I think on that side, the buy-in piece was extremely important from the team that was actually going to be running and monitoring and executing the project. The second piece was around what we were actually measuring as success in terms of the project itself. So what would be deemed a failure, what would be deemed successful, what could go wrong, what were the pitfalls we were looking for that would make us be turn it off, you know? And then also it's not just a one and done. So it also has to constantly be then further integrated into your process as you deploy more products, or we recently replatformed our website, so as you've effectively added an additional kind of process or work stream into your work. So how do you actually embed that in a meaningful way where it just doesn't get lost as we turned on the lights and now we're never gonna look at the, I don't know, it's a terrible analogy, bulb again. We have to maintain it and keep it up to date. So on that project, those kind of three pieces were super important. Go forward, we're nowhere near sophisticated in our AI journey at this point. But we're really curious about it. And every project that we look at in this space, it has to adhere to kind of the Knix values of, does it add to the customer experience? Does it allow us to do something? Does it allow us to be excellent at something? Does it allow us to push the business in the right direction that really helps us to achieve our mission? And the Knix mission is, of course, empowering our community to live unapologetically free. And so we really adhere to that within the business. And we want to make sure that all the projects we do, whether AR or not, product launches, campaigns, really fit within that ecosystem. Because as a mission-driven brand, people buy our product because they love the product and they love the brand.
And what you stand for.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you think, because you are in your early stages, how do you align the rest of the senior leadership team, who may have different opinions about a community-led brand that feels very human, what you're describing? It's very human, very connected, and you continue to want to potentially add more technology. How do you align senior leadership team on that idea?
I think it comes from making sure that senior leadership always lives in a place of constant kind of curiosity and hiring people and being around people who want to be really excellent at what they do, not at the sacrifice of what the brand is trying to achieve, but they want to be the best in their field. So, when ChatGPT deployed a Shopify integration, we were the first on the phone saying we want to try this. We want to try this. And our CTO, was 100%. We want to try this. We don't want to miss out on this opportunity to test this out. And it wasn't a steerco level decision. It came from a place where we try to surround ourselves with people who understand the mission, understand what the business is trying to achieve, and are constantly trying to be really excellent at what they do. And so they stay curious about it. I think at the more junior levels, we want to inspire people with a clear vision of what we want to do as a business. And if that means we have to be really great at making a lot of different kinds of creative, or we have to be super amazing at how we interact with our consumers, whether it's via DM on Instagram or TikTok or on the website. We want to make sure people can shop us wherever they want to shop us, whether it's TikTok Shop or ChatGPT or whatever. We want to make sure people understand what the product does, the efficacy of it. There are really wonderful systems and tools that now exist that allow us to be really, really good at those things. And so we try to just set those goalposts as the objective and not make the technology to achieve them the objective, but make the objective very clear to people and the vision to get there clear, and then try to inspire them to actually discover and pick kind of how they want to try it. Still a bit of the wild, wild west.
Yes. Yeah. But what
and
I
we
love
have to be okay with that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What I love that you're describing is that technology is enabling you to think bigger, to think differently, to go beyond maybe what you could even do 3 or 5 years ago.
Yes.
Without adding significant headcount, without adding significant resources. You're thinking bigger, you're expanding your business, you're growing differently. And that, for brands that are maybe on the smaller side that might be listening, that are just exploring, it's a really good example of how to take it and learn, but communicate to the entire organization what you're doing.
Yeah.
And kind of maybe diminish the fear of the team.
Yeah. Exactly. And
Very
we have so
interesting.
much respect for the team that's helped build Knix. This is a business that started in a basement and now employs, almost 500 people. And so that is built on the creativity and resilience and tenacity of the humans.
Yeah.
But it was enabled by the technology of the day. And so how do we get further enablement for people to really be able to make themselves even better at what they do?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the tone that we try at least to set versus making it like a corporate mandate.
Right. Right. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Djalal, is that similar maybe to brands that are also maybe in their earlier stages than big enterprise brands? What are you seeing similar to what Nicole's sharing?
Ultimately, a lot of experimentation. And I love what Nicole said about not making about technology or AI, but making it more about, once again, the problem or the solution that you're trying to implement.
Yeah.
I think if you make it technology first, you're going to come to the wrong conclusion or ultimately come to the outcomes which might not be as good as when you're focusing on the key problem first. But I do believe that most of the brands that we're working with that are applying AI in a very similar fashion, specifically at the earlier stages, they find that AI has enabled them to go quicker, experiment more, be more creative, and remove a lot of manual kind of tasks that they typically do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do see a lot of that. And once again, probably in the younger businesses, because the bigger you get, the harder it becomes to then kind of go through all of those steps, because there's so many different things you need to take into account.
Yeah.
And it's pretty challenging to do so.
Really challenging.
Yeah.
Do you get this sense of the metrics that brands are using to describe success? How does that look like to them?
Yeah, it's very different. And I think the biggest danger is not defining those metrics from the get-go. It's very, very dangerous. And that's why I double down on the fact that it's not about the technology, because if you get the memo top down, we need to get some AI, and you get some AI and you're like, okay, we've implemented some AI, what's next?
Right.
So I think those metrics are absolutely vital to get right from the beginning, so you know exactly what you're measuring. And I think that's very difficult because AI is still relatively brand new. I know it's been around for a few years and people are using it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But defining those metrics, I don't know. It's also a change in mindset. For example, metrics for your AI agent or customer service, customer support are going to be very different to, let's say, cross-channel communication. Let's say that you're bringing in an AI agent to prevent churn, right? So there you're looking at a whole bunch of different metrics that you're testing. And if you kind of narrow it down, you can then deploy the agent, see how it's performing, and then roll it out to other campaigns or other objectives.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think absolutely vital to define the metrics up front and make sure that they're very, very clear, and then deploy the different technologies. Sometimes you might not realize that AI is not the solution, and I hate to say that, but sometimes it might be a very simple solution, and you don't need to spend a huge amount of resources overcomplicating the solution, where it's a much easier fix than what you originally anticipated.
Right.
Yeah, the solution is as good as the definition of the problem and the metrics that you're measuring.
That's a really good line. That should be a quote somewhere.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure I stole it up somewhere.
That's good.
But yeah.
It's a good way to think, though, about the decisions and the spend and why you're doing it, the definition of the problem. Because I agree with you, often I hear through just executives that I'm interviewing, there is this push of, you need to use more AI. You need to do this. And it's very generic in its definition. So what you're describing is, but for what? What specifically, what are the bottlenecks? What are you trying to solve? And then what are the metrics that we want to work around?
Yeah.
The little pushback there.
Yeah, and within the retail kind of periphery, if you look at some of the greatest companies out there and you look at their keynotes, and if you look at the Steve Jobs days and some of the Google presentations, if you actually look closely, they never focus on the tech, or they never used to. And I think at the point that they start to focus on AI, things go wrong. But if you look at the greatest kind of presentations back in the day, like a self-driving car, the demo itself is that you get in the car and it gets you somewhere without doing anything. They don't go into the detail of explaining how complicated the algorithm running the car is.
Right.
The actual experience is what matters.
Yeah.
And the actual outcome that matters. Or when you have AI photography and you take a picture and there's like a trillion things happening in the background, no one really cares what the algorithm is doing. The only thing that they care about is the quality of the photo.
Yeah.
So I think the companies that focus too much on like the buzzwords and the AI, both from the retail and the vendor side, because I've seen so many different kind of features being released that have an AI tag on it, that they're just not driving any value whatsoever. It's like a complete waste of time. Yeah. So I think it's about the outcome before anything else. And the best AI is the one that's silent and less intrusive and works for you in the background.
Right. Shifting gears a bit, Nicole, thinking about brands that are your size, often you may not have the infrastructure or the headcount to build what you need from scratch.
Yeah.
You may not have that. So you often are kind of shopping for different technologies. How have you guys approached that topic? Maybe at Knix or what you're hearing in the industry in similar brands?
Yeah, I think even how that conversation has evolved in 6 months is very different, right? Like even 6 months ago, there were far fewer businesses that were kind of like products that were easy to integrate into businesses. It's changed so much, and there's no kind of clear winner yet, really in many of the categories.
Yeah.
And I think there's businesses that are obviously within the kind of overall search agents, there are some obvious ones that are dominating, whether or not it's ChatGPT or Google, Gemini, or whatever it is. But within kind of the marketing space, I think there's still a lot of green fields kind of ahead to see. And I think it's exciting as a marketer to see where these agents and these different products can help you do better business. But I do think that businesses today, whether they're my size or others, and I've talked to businesses that are much bigger than ours, we're facing like tremendous different kinds of headwinds, as consumer sentiments change, as consumer confidence changes, with inflation, with kind of state of the world itself, there's a tremendous amount of kind of contraction. And we have to stay like really super focused on the value that we create for the customer. My experience over the last like 20 years or so is kind of the consumer is smarter than they've ever been. They're the most discerning. They're sniff test. They have like a sommelier's nose. They like can sniff out bullshit from a mile away and they shouldn't be served nonsense. And so I think we can't be distracted by shiny things. So I think a business like Knix or a similar sized business or even bigger businesses are better served working with experts who kind of know how to do this well versus necessarily trying to build it themselves in-house. But honestly, in 2 months from now, there might be tools that allow you to build all these tools yourself using AI agents. And so that might change, and this might be a dated statement. But today, I do think it's more seamless to test, experiment, learn, and scale, and not build these things yourself and work with experts who are super great at this space and who are constantly building and changing and investing in their product, whether it's businesses like Ometria or others. Where they really know what customers are looking for, and they have the technological capabilities to do great work.
Right. And then you move faster. Because of it. Because the integration can be quite quick. In some cases.
The retailers need to like stick with what they know, creating great product, great experiences, adding value to people's lives, And, if we're going to request share of wallet from people, we have to, when people's wallets are feeling tight, you got to offer something great.
Right.
And so, if you can get a little bit more value for your end customer via AI, that's one thing. But, you got to stick with your core delivery and let these tools help and assist you in that versus trying to build them yourself.
The interesting thing that you're describing, as I hear it, is this kind of community risk versus technology integration, because it feels like there's a place where it shifts to feel like you're using too much technology and the community notices, because you're right, they're more engaged than ever. So I think what I'm hearing from you is this idea of you have to pay very close attention to the sentiment of your customer base and what they need from you, and then how you serve them, either with more human engagement, more stores, more connection points, versus more technology.
Yeah, I would say that's true, even if we weren't talking about AI.
Yeah.
I
agree.
think it's unrelated to this topic.
Yeah.
I think it's more so around staying really attuned to what the people, dance with the one who brought you, like listening to what they're looking for, what they value, regardless of the AI component of it all, right? There's only, when times are tight, there's only so many things that businesses can spend money on and spend their internal resources on. So make sure they're the things that, really bring joy. If you're a brand that tries to bring joy, brings innovation. If you're a brand that is really trying to lean into innovation, value. If you're price driven, you got to stick with your core authentic ethos. And whether it's AI or it's other technology or it's product development or whatever, you stick with, you try to really take what you're great at and be so great at delivering that to your end customer.
Amazing. Thank you. Djalal, when you think that kind of build versus buy platforms versus an integration, maybe at the bigger enterprise level, what are you seeing?
Yeah, and I think it's a fascinating topic because we're in a place where it's very different than what it used to be. I think over the last decade, it was a very kind of big separation between build versus buy. And I think the in-between was taboo because you create this kind of Frankenstein product because it wasn't really kind of fit for purpose. It was kind of bespoke specifically for one customer. And I think a lot of vendors and or brands weren't going down the middle path. I think now with the technologies that are available, I think a hybrid model is probably the best. And I think what we typically encourage is for 70 to 80% of core use cases, like say data, ID resolution, maybe some of the other core use cases, you buy. But for the cutting edge testing and experimentation of AI or any other technology, you actually build and prototype. And with today's technology, that's very easy or accessible to do. It wasn't before. As you've mentioned, you can get an agent to build another agent, or you can get an agent to build something else.
Right.
So, and I think back in the day, Palantir kind of pioneered the forward deployed engineer, FDE, and they used to go and sit, it's kind of like a product manager and an engineer, and they go and sit with the brand, and they just listen to feedback, and they build and prototype something directly there. Now, fast forward 10 years, we have the technology to do that at scale. So as long as you lay in the right foundation and you have that 80% of core use cases solved, I think the future is for vendors like us to work with their customer advisory board, to work with very kind of mature and data-driven customers to quickly experiment and build functionality that others are kind of not taking the risk to do.
Yeah.
So I think that balance 70-30, 80-20 is now critical, and I think hybrid platforms are the ones that are going to bring the most innovation and the most value to the brands that they work with. So I don't think it's any longer buy or build. I think the ones that find the right balance are the ones that are going to be very successful for both the vendor side, but also from the brand side. And you can have small tiger teams, and it's very quick prototyping, working with a brand. And most of the time, those tests are not going to be successful, to be quite honest. But the ones that are, they'll be quite transformational for both sides. And then you can productize it and roll it out.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very interesting time to be doing that. And I think it's time to embrace that kind of hybrid approach.
Yeah. Does the hybrid approach prevent brands from kind of looking and sounding the same? So they have still their own point of view, their own kind of mix of the internal what they've built, so that brands don't all start to sound the same because they're all using similar technology. Does that, what you're describing, does that prevent some of that?
Yeah, I think it definitely prevents that because you're at the same time scaling a bespoke solution. I know it sounds a bit contradicting, but ultimately that's what you're doing. And I think the most important thing, because you're building or testing or experimenting with one particular use case per brand, you're leveraging the brand's data. You're not kind of replicating it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Completely random example. Me and my friend we're doing like a fantasy league for a Champions League, for football or soccer, however you want to call it. And there was a deadline and I had to get it done last night. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, pick like, I don't know, 15 players to put in my fantasy football team. My friend did the exact same thing.
No way.
And we both had identical teams.
Right.
So here what you're seeing is ChatGPT is leveraging the exact same data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I would have asked ChatGPT, where I've threw in a spreadsheet of my own in there, our answers would be radically different. So when you build a use case or a prototype product for a brand, you're leveraging its own data, its knowledge. And Nicole talked a lot about like brand values and guidelines. All of that should be incorporated.
Yeah.
So as a matter of fact, the more bespoke you go or the more prototyping you do leveraging AI, the less likelihood of creating something that's repetitive or similar to other brands.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Have you had that same experience?
No, I just
Nicole?
think that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like when you said the lists were the same, obviously they're the same, right? It's like sports facts. So it's like, okay, these are the statistically best players. But if you had put in your own criteria, you're like,
Yeah.
I want.
Yeah.
I was about to say some stuff about soccer. I don't know anything about. I want like a great right winger,
Team.
with a strong left kick. I don't know.
Maybe about hockey. You could talk about hockey.
Yeah, I could talk about hockey. There you go.
Yeah, I've no idea about hockey. So
I wouldn't need to ask ChatGPT to put
whole
in who to
different
put in my
podcast.
fantasy hockey league. But no, it's interesting. Yeah, the structure at which what you're looking for helps deem the actual output of what you get.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, and not to continue with the most irrelevant example, but just bring it back to the data, how important it is. My team, my friend this morning calls me. He's like, why do you choose 3 injured and 2 suspended players? So ChatGPT didn't do its due diligence to identify that the player list that it gave me had like
They're not even playing.
They're not even playing. So I'm
Yeah.
going to be bottom of my league. It's
okay.
game over for me. It's going to be a tough year.
The language learning model is listening to us right now, so it's updating.
I hope
It's
so.
updating
I
its
hope so. I need to
algorithm.
make it up for next year.
Yeah, exactly.
See, your lack of time. You said you're in a rush. Get it done.
Yeah.
There we go.
You're going to end up losing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Instead of-
my outcome was not well defined to begin with. That's why.
Your criteria.
Good way to look
Exactly.
Your
at it.
criteria to measure.
Yeah.
And think about the next few years. What are you most excited about? I'll give this to both of you. I'll start with you, Nicole.
Oh my gosh.
Marketing specifically. We won't talk about sports.
Yeah, winning the
in the
Stanley
marketing,
Cup,
in the world
Toronto
of
Maple Leafs.
marketing, what are you most excited about?
Okay, so what am I most excited about? My gut honestly went to 2 places. One, I think it's going to be amazing to see how content and storytelling evolves. I think we keep pushing the envelope, pushing the creativity.
Yeah.
And that's not just brands, it's also people. You know, everything is just getting more engaging, different, better. And that's like really exciting to see. So I think we're going to see a lot of really interesting brands and brand storytelling that's going to emerge. And then I'm also really excited for how AI can potentially unlock new businesses. You know, I'm a serial number 2 of co-founders. Like I work almost exclusively for founders of companies. I don't know what's wrong with me. But this is my 5th founder that I've worked for in a row. And I love founders of businesses. Like I find the passion, the ambition level, the kind of like kind of breakthrough of a new idea. I always describe founders. This isn't. I'm not trying to. But I don't describe this. I was about to take someone's expression, just for the editing room. This is not my expression. But founders, I find, like what I've heard is they're micro pessimists, macro optimists, right? So it's like nothing is ever good enough today.
Okay.
But tomorrow, like if we can just do these 10 things, we're going to be a $20 billion business. And then you do the 20 things and it's like, well, it's fine, not good enough. But like tomorrow, and that constant seed of evolution and trying to get better every day, every year, I find extremely inspiring. And I think via AI or using AI, whether it is the AI landscape and watching and participating to see who the winners are, what kind of great big ideas that are going to break through and that are going to transform marketing or just transform many aspects of the world, I think it's going to be amazing to watch. And the unlock that entrepreneurs are going to have using some of these tools that would otherwise be extremely cost prohibitive, it creates such an exciting, like, competitive landscape. And I'm looking forward to seeing like how that evolves and what new businesses we see kind of like shake out of this.
Yeah, totally agree.
So those would be my two pieces.
Love it. Thank you. Jalal?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I've heard that somewhere before. I don't know if I heard it from you.
Maybe. I say it all the time, especially to founders.
Yeah, but I love that.
Did it resonate?
Yes, I'm now worried. It resonated too strongly. So yeah, I'll have to think about that.
Yeah.
I'll give you one because I think it's the most important one. And I think now AI and all we talk about is like efficiency and removing manual work. But I think the biggest unlock that humanity is going to see is around creativity. And I think it's going to be fascinating because the more we look at some of the initial outputs, whether it's video, whether it's photo, whether it's kind of copywriting, it's getting pretty crazy. It's getting to a level that is now matching quality that historically took years to produce, that can now be produced in minutes, maybe at most days.
Yeah.
And if we look at the whole kind of, even beyond retail, I think there are many applications towards retail, whether you're creating a new product or clothes or creating content to promote that or marketing. But if you look at, I don't know, films and you look at video games and you look at music, the pessimist would say that you're going to be replicating or stealing other ideas. But I think it's only going to give more creative freedom to individuals who are able to take that technology and put it to good use.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be like an explosion of things that we haven't even thought of.
Yeah.
And I think we overall as a society are going to become a lot more creative. So I think it's going to be very cool.
It's become accessible.
Yeah.
Like the creativity has become accessible to very, very young people through everyone. Fantastic. Thank you both. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
That's a wrap on this episode of Retail Intelligence in Action. This story proves that there's real power in being willing to build as you go, especially when the rules are still being written. Big thanks to Nicole Tapscott for sharing such an honest view of experimentation, AI adoption, and team evolution, and to Djalal and the entire team at Ometria for continuing to be a trusted partner to brands in navigating this uncharted territory. And of course, thank you to Paula Makaji and the OFFBound team. Your storytelling expertise brought this episode to life in the best way possible. I'm Ron Thurston. Follow and subscribe to catch every conversation on what it really takes to lead in this new era of AI-powered retail. I'll see you soon.